This is a high-pressure moment for both of these excellent players. Win, you get to play more Pokemon tomorrow. You lose, your World Championship run is over, and this is a familiar face at the World Championships. Takuya Yoneda, we're used to seeing him in Day 2 action. He's fighting in Day 1 here, 1 win away. Made top 8 at the World Championships just a few years ago. It seems like just a few years ago, but I think it was like 5 or 6 years. But he's an excellent player, one of the top players in Japan and in the world, and it's always a treat to see him play.
Yeah, always recognized as one of the top players in Japan, highly respected amongst his peers. And of course, Takuya Yoneda is only one of the competitors here. He is going up against Alejo Antonio Salvador Iturbe from Argentina. So we do have 2 players from different continents duking it out, hoping to earn themselves a victory and have a Day 2 invite after this round. Now, Takuya Yoneda is the player on the left. Alejo is the player on the right. It looks like Alejo will be the player who starts things off. And he seems to be looking at a hand that belongs to Pikachu and Zekrom.
Yes. Yeah, he's got a lot of options. He's trying to figure out what to do in what order. And I think a lot of players underestimate how complicated your first turn can be in the Pokemon TCG. You might say, yeah, it's easy. Just go find your Pokemon, play it on energy. How hard is it? And then you look at a hand like that, an opening hand where you're like, I have an electromagnetic radar. I'm going to have to discard 2 cards, search for 2 Pokemon GX. I have a Pokemon communication. I can trade in a Pokemon, go find a Pokemon. I have a supporter that can search for an energy and an item card. What do I do first?
And then you start thinking, well, what if I discard this Pokemon communication? And all these other ideas come to mind. And of course, that's just your first turn of the game. That's just your first few plays on your first turn of the game. So that is how complicated these early turns can be. Now, of course, at the same time, once you start looking through your deck, you do want to take a look and see if you can spot what cards are prized. If you can, then you can start to set up a strategy, a long-term strategy for your following turns. Now, of course, Pikachu and Zekrom GX, Tag Team GX, is a Pokemon card that we've been seeing throughout not only this weekend, but also the North American International Championships. We're very used to seeing this card on the main stage, and for a good reason. It's powerful, it's fast, and if it gets one of these just amazing starts, then it's very difficult for any deck to compete against it. But Takuya Yoneda, though, is playing a deck that we've, maybe not featured as much as we probably could have, seeing as how so much of the field is Malamar.
Yeah, Malamar was the most popular deck, but I haven't seen any stats or anything yet, but I feel like it is not performed as well as its representation says that it should. It is by far the most popular deck if you combine all of the variants of Malamar.
Sure.
Whether it's the single prize version, the Garchomp and Giratina version, Ultra Necrozma. I think there was like close to 150 people in Masters playing this deck. But it feels like a lot of them just fell by the wayside as the tournament progressed. Takuya Yoneda, one of those players who has a chance to push through with this deck, but he's got a tough road ahead of him, starting off with that Esper, which you want to use later in the game. You never really want to start with it.
Right.
And your opponent going first, having a very strong start, getting Tapu Koko Prism Star. He's going to set himself up for a turn 2 full blitz, and we'll see where the game goes from there.
First, we're going to see a Dead change to find 6 additional cards here for Alejo. Ideally, for him, he'll be finding more tools to get himself going aggressively, and it does seem like he's done so. Now, you did mention that the Malamar deck has been struggling, and you're absolutely right. But at the same time, it's played in such high numbers that, taking a quick glimpse at the top tables during round 7 in my break, I saw a field full of Malamars on the top 15 tables. So they are still performing. It's just a lot of them have been underperforming as well. So you're absolutely right. It's definitely perhaps maybe underperformed a bit compared to the numbers that we saw played. Now, Takuya, though, does get to start his first turn of the game after seeing Alejo's, pretty much explosive start, already having the Tapu Koko Prism Star in play, knowing that it's bound to hit that discard or bound to hit that lost zone and accelerate some energies onto Alejo's side of the field. We're going to have to see if Takuya can kind of match that kind of speed. If he can get multiple Inkays in play, that's going to be step 1. And of course, if he can start to set up for potential turn 2 attacker, then he's going to put himself in a fine spot to be able to reciprocate the amount of aggression that's coming from Alejo. But if he can't, if we see him struggle to get multiple Inkays in play, then it could be one of those runaway games that sometimes these Pikachu and Zekrom decks end up having.
Yeah, the first and second turns are so important for a Malamar deck. If you stumble at all in those first couple turns, you really start to fall behind, and it's hard to come back. We do see the first card requiring translation. You see the Japanese cards for Takuya. We see this Sableye, and he actually has an English one with him. He's like, look, here it is. He may have expected this might come up. Yeah, it's not a card we see very often. It's got one of the few attacks you can use on your first turn if you go first with that Quick Hunt. But otherwise, it's going to be used mostly for that Cursed Drop attack. It lets you spread 3 damage counters out on your opponent's Pokemon. And it's got a little more HP than Mew, which has a similar attack. But it also doesn't have weakness, so it might be a little tougher to knock out. And also, it gives you the benefit of, if you start with it and you go first, you get to use that attack, Quick Hunt.
Yeah, kind of like a little jack-of-all-trades kind of card.
Yeah.
Doesn't do anything particularly great, but at the same time, it's useful enough that Takuya decided that it was worth the inclusion in his deck. Now, he did end up benching it, and of course, Takuya still has access to 2 additional cards in his hand, so he is still likely to continue setting up his board. And like I mentioned, he truly does want to get multiple Inkays in play. That's one of the top priorities for his deck.
Hey, he did get a turn 1 Lily. It's not looking too bad for him right now. He gets the Giratina down on his bench and probably wants to attach an energy somewhere. Looks like going straight to the Giratina. And this is what you need to do with this Malamar deck. This was not the perfect start, but he's setting himself up for a turn 2 attack. And that's really what you need to do. If you can't start attacking turn 2, you know, your attackers just don't have the firepower to keep up with a lot of these tag teams. The big benefit of this deck is you start doing solid amounts of damage turn 2, and then you never stop once you set up.
Right.
But if you never get started in the first place, or you stumble a little bit, you can end up falling behind, and your opponent can capitalize. So this turn 2 for Takuya Yoneda is going to be very important, because I assume Alejo is going to come up with a turn 2 full blitz and set himself up.
Seems to be very close to being able to do that already. He still has that Tapu Koko on the bench, and seems to be potentially finding a Dene to find himself new cards for his hand. So while Alejo will have a very powerful second turn in all likelihood, we do have to kind of start to wonder what Takuya's game plan is going to start to become. All these actions that Alejo is performing, Takuya's been, very well aware of. This is nothing that's surprising Takuya here. This is something that I'm sure that he's played hundreds of times in testing, and he's got to be prepared for the onslaught of damage coming from this lightning-based deck. Now, whether the Giratina will be able to pull enough of its own weight, or whether he'll have to start using additional attackers remains to be seen. But remember, he's already got an Esper, he's already got a Sableye on his bench. These are Pokemon that just aren't particularly useful in the early part of the game, or in Sableye's case, just against this deck in particular. So it's not an ideal start, I guess is what I'm trying to say for Takuya. He, despite already having 1 energy on his Pokemon and having an Inkay in play, the other Pokemon in play for him, that's exactly what I was afraid of. Double custom catcher, finding that Inkay. Only having 1 Inkay in play was just such a dangerous little game that Takuya was playing. If you get that Inkay knocked out, then you are almost guaranteed not to be able to do anything on your next turn, and then you're just going to be falling pretty far behind in a lot of situations, and that's exactly what's happening here, as Alejo does take the first prize of the game, and an important prize is at that, as he does knock out this Inkay of Takuya's.
Wow, yeah, not bad. Turn 2, double custom catcher. Now, I will say it's not as great as it could be. Of course, you would love to full blitz there instead of just hit with a tandem shock from Raichu and Alolan Raichu. He could have gambled a little bit and tried to Dede change into Zeraora GX to try to full blitz instead, but Alejo is saying, you know what, I'm knocking out this Inkay. It might not be the way I want to do it, but I'm still going to get rid of it, and that's going to stop the Giratina from attacking turn 2. So excellent play here from Alejo, knowing I can go after Inkay, really shut down the engine of my opponent's deck, and try to take a big advantage.
And remember, there's now a lot of pressure on Takuya to find additional Inkays. There's pressure on him to find additional energy. Like all these things are just, they're starting to add up. Takuya just was not expecting that play. I guarantee you he was not expecting to get his Inkay double custom captured on the second turn of the game. And it's just putting him in an awkward position for these following few turns, as he's not used to having such a slow start as he's now going to be forced to have.
Yeah, we see him actually go for the quick hunt here. It's not quite a junk hunt like Sableye of old, but get to search your deck for a card, put it into your hand, and he's basically saying, look, I need to go search for a card here. I'm falling a little far behind. And then when this Sableye gets knocked out, maybe I can use that spell tag, spread some damage around, and set myself up for a future turn to pick up a knockout.
Now, does spell tag lead to relevant numbers early on? I don't think it does early on, right? But as the game progresses, that's when that spell tag could really start to mess around with Alejo's game plan.
Yeah, you can do a couple different things. I think the big one is you want to set up for that Garchomp and Giratina GX later in the game for the Calamitous Slash. If there's a damage counter on the Pokemon, it lets you get a knockout on Pikachu and Zekrom. So I think he's going to set up with that. You could also put 3 damage counters on a Dedenne GX, so then your Giratina can finish it off if you have double custom catcher at some point. We'll see where he wants to spread this damage. I assume 1 each will go on the tag teams. No, it looks like 1 on the active and then 3 on the Raichu and Alolan Raichu. So he can set up both to be knocked out by Garchomp and Giratina. But he's still a couple turns away from powering up his own tag team, so it's going to be rough.
Yeah, now Alejo does go down to 4 prizes remaining, has taken 2 in the first few turns of the game, and now Takuya once again just trying to find a way to claw back into this early game. Now, of course, we do kind of expect this kind of start out of Alejo. This isn't something that's surprising. This isn't something that's unusual. What's unusual right now is just that Takuya is still struggling to gain any sort of momentum. Once he starts gaining that momentum, though, he may be able to just kind of maintain that momentum and keep it until the end of the game. That's really what it's going to come down to. Now, Takuya is still hoping to finish setting up here. He is Stellar Wishing here, looking for any trainer card that can help him.
Yeah, he might need to grab a supporter for next turn. I'm not sure if he has one. Otherwise, I think he's just got to get an attack off this turn, and he also needs to get a second Inkay down. He's got the 1 Malamar. He can get 1 Psychic Recharge, but this deck really starts working after you get the second Malamar out. A lot of your attackers need 3 energy to attack, so you use 2 Psychic Recharges, attach the 3rd energy, and then you get to attack. So
make it sound so easy.
Yeah.
That's a lot of pressure to put on 1 Stellar Wish.
But he does find the Pokemon communication off of his Cynthia this turn, so he can grab the second Inkay and at least set himself up for success in future turns. This turn he can get an attack off. He can Psychic Recharge and attach to the Giratina, which already has an energy on it. So he can Shadow Impact for 130 and set up a 2-hit knockout. But it's going to be rough. He's really not going to be able to miss a beat for the rest of the game. He's got to be on every single turn from here.
Takuya still looking through his deck, hoping to continue setting up here. And like you were mentioning, he can no longer afford to miss a beat. He can no longer afford to misstep here. He has to kind of have the deck start flowing on all cylinders from here on out.
Yeah. Looks like he's going to play a Reset Stamp to disrupt his opponent's hand as well. Reset Stamp, I think one of the most powerful cards out of this Unified Minds expansion. Just think about how many games were decided by N all those years. Putting your opponent down to a low hand size, and this is the same effect on an item card. You don't get to draw cards, of course, yourself, but you get to mess with your opponent's hand, and that effect has always been extremely good.
It's a really skill-intensive card as well, because a lot of players are put into situations where they only play 1 or 2 of it because you can't afford to play the full suite of 4, which really just comes down to timing. And if you can time your Reset Stamp as well as you possibly can. Now Alejo is trying to kind of seal the deal with this game. He is pretty far ahead when it comes to prizes, but he just doesn't want to let Takuya back into this game. If he can afford to stop that.
Yeah, this is an interesting turn. Alejo certainly has an opportunity to kind of closed the door on this game, but he's going to have to get pretty lucky. If he can find Tag Switch and an Energy, he can Tag Bolt GX and knock out both the Giratina and the Malamar on the bench. And I think that would basically be game over. Takuya wouldn't be able to really power up an attacker on the next turn with only access to one Malamar. So I think if you're Alejo, that's what you're looking at going for here. Alternatively, if you find your last couple custom catchers, that works too. You know, he's actually going to start off with an Energy Switch, so now just needs to find Energy plus Thunder Mountain or the Tag Switch, and he can pull this off.
Yeah, the fact that he went for the Energy Switch just implies that he is going for that play, and it's up to his hand to be able to cooperate with him. Does he find what he needs? I don't believe he did.
Well, he does have...
Well, there's a Thunder Mountain.
Yeah, he's got a Volkner as well. That'll do it.
He has not played a supporter this turn yet, so he does have access to this two-card combination here.
Yikes.
Looks like he's going for that Volkner, so it looks like he is going to be able to go for this huge GX attack, which very well may just seal the deal for Alejo here, and it may give him an early 1-0 lead against Takuya Yoneda. A fan favorite if I've ever seen one.
Yeah, and if you're Takuya, you might look at this and, you know, think you reset stamp your opponent down before. What are the odds that they pulled all this off? But, well, they did it. Although he plays Volkner and does not find any Lightning Energy.
I mean, he's got to have some left in his deck, right?
Oh, all right.
Still looking through, yeah.
I think Alejo may have misstepped here. He grabs the Stadium Nav off of the Volkner. There was a Tag Switch in his deck he could have used to set up the Tag Bolt GX and get the double knockout. He may have realized it too late. He had already selected his card, started shuffling, and now well, Takuya might have a chance in this game.
He may be on a different wavelength. Like, he may have had a different strategy, you know, coming into this turn, and he may just not have seen that play immediately. You know, like when you have a play in your mind. And,
I think he knows. Look at him.
Well, right. I think he knows now. What I'm trying to say is, like, in the moment, he just didn't have that line of play, you know, in sight. And then as he's going through it, he's like, oh, wait a minute. Of course I could have done this other thing. And that does happen, you know, when you kind of just like zone in on a particular play. And now Alejo did give up a very crucial opportunity to kind of seal this game away from Takuya. Takuya now has got to probably got to be feeling a burst of momentum and confidence, whether he's still behind or not. The fact that he's still in this game, just it does take quite a bit.
Yeah, you can't give any breathing room to a player like Takuya Yoneda. Any edge he can get, he'll punish you for it, and we'll see if he can take this little gift and run with it.
With that said, we're still looking at this kind of a board from Takuya and that kind of a board from Alejo.
Yeah, this game is a lot closer than it looks, though. The prize cards do not tell the story. Now with these two Malamar in play, he can double Psychic Recharge, attach for the turn. He can simply retreat now to Giratina, Shadow Impact, take a triple prize knockout. And that means he just has to knock out one more tag team to win this game. So he set himself up beautifully.
Big time knockout from Takuya Yoneda. As he is going down to 3 prizes remaining, only needs a tag team GX attack or a tag team knockout to be able to secure a victory against Alejo, as it seemed like the game was all but over. It seemed like Alejo had found a way to secure it. But he, unfortunately for him, did not, and now he let Takuya right back into the game. Takuya did not miss that, but he found that triple prize knockout, and he is now one big tag team knockout away from being able to win this game that seemed to be just so far away from his hands.
Yeah, now Alejo's got to figure out a way to win this game. His opponent has no Pokemon GX in play. You know, he missed that big Tag Bolt opportunity to set his opponent back a turn and take an extra prize card. Now that Mew is on the bench to prevent any future Tag Bolt plays, which I don't even think are really possible at this point. We do see the Zerga tree come down. There are 3 prize cards remaining, so it can do extra damage this turn. But he's just going in there with his tag team, taking another knockout and saying, all right, well, if you knock this out, you got me. But this is what I'm going to do.
Alejo now down to 2 prizes. Takuya still has 3 prizes remaining. Does Takuya have the knockout available to him?
It's very simple. If he finds Garchomp and Giratina GX, and he has a fighting energy left in his deck, he will win the game this turn. But he's just going to start off with that Cynthia, shuffle in, draw 6.
His deck is still rather large.
Yeah, and his counts on a lot of cards are very thin. Just 1 Garchomp and Giratina GX, just 2 fighting energy, and he's already used one of the fighting energy earlier, so there's a chance he's out of those cards, one of them's prized. We'll find out.
I don't see the Garchomp and Giratina yet.
All right, even if he doesn't have access to it, we can take a look through his deck right now.
The Viridian Forest, finding him that fighting energy, that's one piece of the puzzle.
Even if he doesn't have access to it, though, he can get a 2-hit knockout on this Raichu and a Alolan Raichu. He's not under any pressure of losing the game next turn, so he's in a pretty great spot. But he's going to try to go for it here with that Stellar Wish. He can find Mysterious Treasure, Pokemon Communication. He saw the Garchomp and Giratina was in his top 5 cards, so that option was there.
But he could not muster up the resources he needed to be able to find that Garchomp and Giratina. Only finds a Cynthia. Now with that Cynthia being found, he is going to be now at this point employing the strategy of going for a 2-hit knockout. Once again, he only needs to take a Tag Team GX knockout. If he can pull that off, then he's going to be able to win this first game. Alejo still needs to knock out 2 non-GX Pokemon, which means Takuya will absolutely get access to 1 additional turn.
Yeah, and this is where that Esper hiding out on the bench is threatening a game-winning attack next turn. Even if Raichu and Alolan Raichu goes to the bench, Takuya can power up the Esper and use that Ear Kinesis attack and finish off Raichu and Alolan Raichu. Unless Alejo has some way to knock out the Esper or heal damage from his Alolan Raichu, or Raichu and Alolan Raichu.
Does he play something like Super Scoop Up maybe?
Maybe. But unless he does something like that, the game's just going to be over.
Well, I'm going to try to get a little bit of a spoiler here, but in the meantime, while Alejo is going through his turn, finds a Thunder Mountain, and he is going to be looking for
the old custom catcher into the other custom catcher.
Jeez. Okay. Well, hopefully he'll be able to draw himself into a better hand. But it's just he's going to have something along the lines of a Super Scoop Up. And I don't see one in his list.
Yeah. It's a throwback to the old Poké Drawer Plus. You play one, draw a card, draw the second one you needed. And if you had both in your hand, you could play both and search your deck for 2 cards. Instead, you wasted 2 of them. That was always a classic.
You love really heartbreaking memories.
Classic maneuver.
All right, Alejo.
Yeah, he's just looking for a way out. He's probably kicking himself for what happened a couple turns ago, but you got to put it behind you. This is it. This is your winning in to make it to Day 2 of Worlds.
Yeah, I mean, it's so much easier said than done, and it does kind of break your heart to see Alejo's facial reactions here, as he absolutely understands that he's kind of lost himself this game in really unfortunate fashion, as now Takuya does have what he needs. He shows it to the
powers up the Esper, and we see the Ear Kinesis finishing off the big tag team, and just 2 knockouts equals 6 prizes, and he's up 1 game.
Yeah, that's Takuya Yoneda for you. You said it yourself. The moment that opportunity kind of opened up for him, you just don't give him that kind of an opportunity, right? The moment that he saw it, he spotted the weakness and he said, all right, there is a very real chance that I can pull off this game. I just can't stumble, and he didn't, and that's everything he needed. Now, once again, Alejo does have to put that game behind him. It's easier said than done, but it's what you have to do to give yourself an opportunity to make Day 2. You have to win two consecutive games here, and you have to do it before time is up. If you cannot pull off a victory here, 2 victories here if you're Alejo within this 26 minutes and change, then you're not going to advance to Day 2. A draw is not good enough for you, and it's not good enough for Takuya either. So both of these players have that absolutely in mind, and I don't think we're going to be seeing very slow plays out of either of these players, especially Alejo, as he is, not only does he have his back against the wall here, but he's also fighting against the clock.
Yep, so it's going to be a tight finish here. Alejo, since he did lose the first game, can choose to go first in the second, and I'm sure he will. And yeah, I mean, you look back, it's. I mean, I don't want to dwell on that one turn, but I mean,
Yeah.
if you look at how the game would have played out from there, it would have been Tag Bolt GX, knockout 2 Pokemon, you take away an attacking option, so Takuya essentially skips a turn, you take another knockout, and then it's basically game over at that point. Instead, he only got 1 knockout, his Pikachu and Zekrom went down, and then there were 2 Malamar in play, and it was just all downhill from there, so you can see how one decision like that can change the entire outcome of a game.
And we did just take a look at Takuya's prizes there. Nothing too heartbreaking there. Plenty of trainer cards, but not in multiples. So Takuya probably not unhappy to see those prize cards if he could. Now Alejo did take a mulligan here, and he will be finding himself 7 new cards, and we'll give Takuya 1 additional card because of that mulligan.
Yeah, I think it's the second mulligan. He's going to draw 7 cards, hope to find a basic Pokemon. Well, not that one.
Yeah. Well, it is a basic Pokemon, but
is.
it's just the wrong one. And we saw a field full of Dedenes last time around, and this time we are seeing one in the active position as that is his starting Pokemon.
Yeah, not the Pokemon you want to start with, but you don't get to choose sometimes. And it's not the end of the world. There's no real terrible starter in these decks. This deck in particular tends to run 3 Dedenne GX, so starting with 1 isn't the end of the world, but of course it's annoying. You can't use Dedenne Change when you start with Dedenne GX, and that's kind of the whole point of the card.
And it's one of those things also where it may start playing mind games with you, right? Like you're already kind of in a negative mindset if you're dwelling on the misplay of game 1, and now to start with pretty much your worst Pokemon to start with. It definitely is not the pick-me-up that you wanted or hoped to have as you started the second game. So now Alejo, once again, has to find a way to get past this. He is going to be able to find himself 6 new cards here through the Cynthia, and he'll be able to start trying to set up a very aggressive and powerful second turn for himself, as he had in the first game. Now, this time around, though, he obviously wants to find a way to secure that victory and not let Takuya right back in. So it's right back to square one. You just have to do it all over again and treat this game as a new game and kind of just have short-term memory.
Yep, so far, pretty strong start from Alejo, similar to game number 1. He's got the Tapu Koko Prism Star, which is, at this point, the hardest part of the combo to find for a turn 2 full blitz. We do see an energy attachment, and he's pretty much setting himself up once again to get a turn 2 attack. We'll see if he can pull it off. And now this is the big moment for Takuya Yoneda. He needs to get multiple Inkay into play this turn, hopefully an energy attachment as well. There's perhaps no other deck that needs a good turn 1 than Malamar. If you can't get those Malamar out on turn 2, it's hard to attack, and you can just stumble from there. We've seen it so many times. Oh, I only got 1 Inkay out first turn. Oh, I couldn't evolve into Malamar turn 2. I got everything out, and there's no energy in my discard. I powered up my Pokemon, but I didn't find an escape board to retreat my Jirachi. There's so many little things that can go wrong, but when it all goes right, the deck feels unstoppable.
That's a very glass half-empty way of looking at this deck.
Spoken as a man who's lost a lot of games with Malamar.
Now, once again, Takuya is looking for multiple Inkays. We saw how having only 1 Inkay just did not work out very well for him early on in game 1. And if his hand will allow it, he'll definitely try to bench a second one before passing the turn. There it is.
Well, step 1 complete. Get 2 Inkay in play.
Step 2, maximize your Stellar Wish and hope to start setting up potential attackers and potential Malamars, more importantly, for your second turn.
So he does get Viridian Forest. That's important for getting Psychic in the discard pile. This Stadium card has been a big part of Malamar decks since the card came out. It was immediately just an instant inclusion. It's, I get to discard Psychic Energy and then just go get another one. It's exactly what I want.
Yeah, it feels like it was almost designed for Malamar, in a sense. because it's just kind of like a natural partnership between these two cards. Takuya now is able to retreat that Jirachi, promotes that Sableye, and now
go hunting.
Yeah, a quick little hunt here. Finding himself any card that he would like and putting it into his hand.
Yeah, it's interesting. At first I thought it would be Curse Drop would be the important attack for Sableye, but in these first 2 games, I don't know if this is normal, but Quick Hunt has been the go-to for Sableye, and it is allowing him to find Malamar and just guarantee him a turn 2 setup. So maybe this is the key to making Malamar work.
If we can go back to what you were saying earlier, you were mentioning how many things have to go right for you in the beginning of the game. And, Quick Hunt seems to be that kind of like last little piece of the puzzle that does allow you to, have all these other things go right for you. Like if your hand has Malamars, but it doesn't have ways to, potentially find additional attackers, then you find that with the Quick Hunt. If you're missing the Malamars, then you find the Malamar with the Quick Hunt. Whatever you're missing, as long as you're not missing at all, you're going to be able to find with Sableye and Quick Hunt.
All right, Alejo hits double heads on the Stadium Nav. So he's going to grab Lysander Labs and Thunder Mountain. And interestingly enough, it discards Lysander Labs, which can be an important card in this matchup. It could turn off the escape board on Jirachi. It can turn off the spell tag on your opponent's psychic Pokemon. But instead, just grabbing it for discard fodder. So he can find the lightning energy using his opponent's Viridian Forest. And again, try to power up for this turn 2 full blitz. Looks like he's got the energy.
I think he's got everything he needs, right? He's got that Thunder Mountain. He's got, well, no, not yet.
He does, yeah. He's got Thunder Mountain. He can use Tapu Koko Prism Star.
There it is, yeah.
Yeah, I think he's just trying to get one more energy in the discard so he can get the full value off of Dance of the Ancients.
He doesn't want that Great Valley Dance of the Ancients. He wants the full value Dance of the Ancients. Now, Alejo finding himself.
He's going to get it.
Cards. Well,
finds those 2 lightning energy and an electromagnetic radar. So if he wants to dump an energy in the discard pile, he can. Oh. Okay, he has an energy switch, so he doesn't have to use it quite yet.
Right.
I was getting worried there.
Like, yeah, I mean,
no, it only goes to bench Pokemon.
Don't make Alejo any more nervous in this particular situation. You cannot let forward any more misplays there. But Alejo is going to be able to start powering up his Pokemon, right? Like now we're seeing full blitz. We're seeing it early enough where these energy are going to put a lot of pressure on Malamar and its subsequent attackers. And now Takuya still has to start getting some Malamars in play. These are things that are not givens yet. We aren't sure if Takuya is going to have a powerful second turn, and now it's on him to...
Spoiler, he is.
Well, he is Takuya here.
Yeah, starts off with the Erica's Hospitality, gets to draw 5 cards. Old school players may remember a similar card, Steven's Advice.
Oh, yeah.
It's almost exactly the same, but you have to have 1 fewer card in your hand to be able to play it.
Powerful then, powerful now.
Yeah, draw 5, always good.
So now he is Stellar Wishing here, looking through the top 5, seeing which of these cards trainer cards he wants to put in his hand. Chooses to go with Mysterious Treasure. And we see, the goods. We see the goods in Takuya's hand.
Yeah, the big question for me is, do you need to get Mew down this turn? There is a looming threat of that Tag Bolt GX, and you don't want that to happen. So Takuya agrees, says, no, I don't want you to knock out 2 of my Pokemon next turn. I'm going to get this Mew with that bench barrier ability, which is very effective at reducing the power of Pikachu and Zekrom's GX attack. And saying, you know what, as long as he doesn't knock out 2 things at once, I'm going to get these 2 Malamar down, double Psychic Recharge, and the cycle has begun.
Yeah, that opening that he gave to Alejo, even though Alejo didn't take it last game, he wanted to avoid being able to give it to him this time around. Losing one of your Malamars and your attacker on the same turn is just very backbreaking. And if you can stop your opponent from doing that because you have something like Mew with its bench barrier, then now Alejo just doesn't have that avenue of attack available to him. And now Alejo has to find a different way to try to take these prizes consecutively. And, against single prize attackers, it's just not all that easy, especially when your opponent is tickling away 130 damage at a time.
Yeah, I mean, 130 is a 2-hit knockout on either of these tag teams.
I mean, he's really ticklish, is really what it comes down to.
Yeah, I mean, it's a 3-for-2 prize exchange if you knock out a tag team and they knock out 2 Giratina in the process. So that's where this Malamar deck can gain its advantage. It's trying to use these powerful single prize Pokemon to eventually win the prize trade against these tag teams. And then at some point, it can use its own big tag teams to get one-hit knockouts and really swing the game.
Lots of energy switches here for Alejo.
Yeah.
Lots and lots.
And we saw he attached the 4th Lightning Energy to his Raichu and Alolan Raichu GX. Looks like he's just going to full blitz this turn.
Yeah, he's full blitzing, and he's keeping that damaged Pikachu and Zekrom GX in the active spot, and he's okay with it getting knocked out, apparently.
Yeah, he may be setting up to reset Stamp on the next turn after his tag team goes down. May just realize, all right, this thing's going to get knocked out by that Esper that locked me out of the game, game 1. So may as well just full blitz, get some extra energy out, and go from there. See what happens.
Do you agree with that line of play?
I think so, especially if you're playing Reset Stamp in your deck. You, again, your Pikachu and Zekrom is going to get knocked out by that Esper at some point. So I think having it get knocked out now is fine. And the fact that you can Reset Stamp your opponent down to 3 cards after this gets knocked out and set up your Zeraora GX so you can use a 2-prize Pokemon instead of a 3-prizer the next turn.
Right.
I think this is fine. But you're still not in good shape.
Yeah, I think that's really what it comes down to. I was wondering, I was like, well, there's got to be a better way, right? Like, this just doesn't lead to a victory very often. But the truth is that his options are just very limited. And it may still be the best option despite it still being a dangerous situation for him to be in.
Yeah, in the previous standard format, before the rotation, one of the big weapons that Pikachu and Zekrom had against Malamar was Zapdos. You would see 2 or 3 Zapdos in these Pikachu and Zekrom decks. It's a single prize attacker that can knock out Inkay and Malamar when you pair it with Guzma. And without Guzma, it's just not as effective. And without Nest Ball and Ultra Ball, it's harder to search for him. So we're seeing fewer Zapdos in these decks and a more GX-focused attack plan. And that plays into the Malamar game plan.
Takuya did counter that Thunder Mountain with his Viridian Forest, and now he Distortion Doored that Giratina, bringing it right back into play. Malamar helped him set up multiple energies onto that Giratina, and now it is ready to Shadow Impact to knock out this Pikachu and Zekrom GX. That's going to be 3 prizes taken here from Takuya. We're seeing the same thing happen again, where Takuya knocks out one Tag Team GX and leaves Alejo with few options and only Tag Team attackers at the ready.
Yeah, he does have Zeraora GX, so he can use a regular GX to Plasma Fist this turn. He also has that Xurkitree in his deck he could attack with at some point. Not sure if it even makes a difference, though. You may want to just use Zeraora GX at this point. That seems like the best plan of attack to me. Attack with Zeraora. It's still somewhat difficult to knock out. It's going to be a 2-hit knockout for Giratina. And force your opponent to have something big.
Yeah, it's a 2-prize knockout. You're right about that. Now, Takuya, though, is just, he's not really going to need too much help from the Reset Stamp, right? Like, he's got the Distortion Door in his discard pile, or he will once it gets knocked out. He's got the Malamars in play. Alejo's going to need quite a bit more help here. And we do see an Electromagnetic Radar. Will the Electromagnetic Radar be able to provide that help that he's looking for?
Well, searches out Dedenne GX. It's a great way to rebound from a Reset Stamp. Dedenne change. Draw till you got 6 cards in your hand. Or, sorry, dump your hand, draw 6 cards. It's not Shaman EX, it's Dedenne GX.
Yeah, in some cases it's even better.
It's usually better.
Yeah. All right, and there it is, that Dedenne change. Discarding the remainder of Alejo's hand and finding him 6 new cards. Will these 6 new cards provide the answers to Takuya's problems? Well, the problems that Takuya's provided.
Yeah. We're going to see Volkner. See if there's any lightning energy left in his deck. He has pulled a lot out. using the full blitz. And looks like there are none left. And he is going to find that crucial reset stamp. This is the game plan he was going for. After Takuya takes that 3-prize knockout, reset stamp him down to 3 cards.
Yeah.
And make it more difficult for him to find game-winning cards.
I mean, Takuya just took 3 prizes, so his hand was, you know, fairly large and fairly threatening. Being able to reset those cards down to 3 is going to help you out. But once again, because Distortion Door kind of brings you right back from the discard pile, it's a very awkward situation for Alejo to be in. He knows he's got to dodge a lot of things. He's got to dodge things like Viridian Forest.
This is big, though. The Lysander Lab is going to counter the Viridian Forest and turn off the escape board. So now Takuya needs to find either a stadium to replace it or a switch. Otherwise, he won't be able to move the Jirachi. Lysander Labs could be a momentum changer here.
Look at that stare from Takuya. It seems like Takuya just felt that momentum change right there with you. As remember, he is down to a 3-card hand, 4 after he draws his card. He has to have some help there, as that Lysander Labs just came down in the most timely fashion. And absolutely sure enough, that escape board is, well, negated. And it's putting Takuya in just the most awkward of spots. Now, of course, we have lots of room to play with here. If you're Takuya, you not only have that 4-card hand, you have Jirachi and lots of other avenues for success. I think I even saw a Lily in Takuya's hand.
Yeah, he's going to kick things off with a reset stamp. He's looking through his opponent's discard pile. He's like, all right, what exactly have you used so far? I think he was counting how many supporter cards were in his opponent's discard pile. It's like, oh, yeah, you've played a lot of Cynthia, a lot of Volkner. This reset stamp might hurt you quite a bit.
Yeah, after that reset stamp, he got himself a Mysterious Treasure, starts looking through his deck, maybe finding another Inkay or, you know, another attacker besides that Giratina.
This is mostly to play his hand down for a Lily. It's going to be a huge 6 cards here. He needs to find an energy, and off this and the Stellar Wish, he also needs to find a stadium.
Full-blown 6-card Lily here, finding him 6 brand new cards. Does Takuya find what he needs to start securing this game? Doesn't seem to be the case just yet.
Viridian Forest would be perfect.
Yeah, Viridian Forest, absolutely the card that would be most game-breaking here.
He's got one.
And may just seal the deal for Takuya if he has it. There it is.
He's got a power plant.
Well, actually, that is not what I expected this stadium to be.
Yeah.
Instead, it is a power plant.
Yeah, that might make things awkward for Alejo. That's going to turn off not only the Thunderclap zone from Zeraora and the invasion from Dawnwing's Necrozma, it will also prevent any Dedenne GX from being used. So Takuya was looking and saying, hey, you've used a lot of those supporter cards. How about I take away your option for Dedenne GX as well and reset stamp you down to 3 cards? How does that sound?
Yeah, and we've seen that there's 2 Dedennes on the bench for Alejo, which means he likely had one available to him.
Perfect math as well. 150 damage now on this Zeraora GX. That means it has 40 HP.
Yep.
If Alejo attacks into this Giratina and knocks it out, the spell tag will put 4 damage counters onto Zeraora GX and finish it off. So now Alejo can't even attack into it without being knocked out in return. He's going to need something like custom catchers. And you think back to an early turn where he used Viridian Forest to discard a Lysander Labs.
Yes, exactly.
And this might be coming back to bite him. He would love to have another one here.
Exactly. Where are you, Lysander Labs? Well, you're in the discard. So that answers that question. Tag switch, I believe, tag switch is going to just kind of recycle attackers in a sense and just, you know, make things a little bit annoying for Takuya, but that's really all it becomes, is just annoying, at least for the time being.
Yeah, and he's going to go ahead and send out Zeraora GX, leaving himself with just 1 card in hand. He can Plasma Fist, but now Takuya can Spell Tag. He can put just 3 on there if he wants, since he can Distortion Door for the knockout.
Yeah, that is exactly what he did there, did Takuya. Alejo really had no way around that, though. So he had to play into it.
The game's not completely over. Takuya can attack here for, well, he's going to grab that Garchomp in Giratina GX. And it looks like he's going to Lily here, or he's going to Viridian Forest.
Finds that fighting energy, and he actually just flicked it away. Seems like he's got a game plan ready.
He does. Does he have 2 custom catchers? He does.
There's the double custom catcher for the victory, and that is going to be a knockout onto this tag team Pokemon. It's going to be the final 3 prizes taken for Takuya, and not a second too soon. There was only 5 minutes remaining on this clock. If Takuya could not have, come up with this victory, that would have actually spelled defeat for both of these players, as they would not have been able to advance. But instead, we get a clear-cut victory here from Takuya.